We're pretty much starting from scratch to build out our URL shortener service in this video. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a new folder directory. I'm just going to call this URL shortener API. And before we add any files in here, we're going to actually start from the application composer and we'll synchronize our folder directory. So let's go over to AWS console and let's search for the application composer. And here it is. I'm just going to start it since we'll be using it. So let's open that up and let's create a new project. And from the menu, there are a few options here, but one we want to look at is activate local sync. And what this does is actually creates the initial template and will be updated as we drag individual resources to our canvas. So let's go ahead and select the folder that you have your project in. Mine is on the desktop, and if I go over to Lambda course, here it is, and let's go and select. And I'm just going to click on view file. You should get this pop-up that's authorizing you to access to the folder, and click activate and save changes, and that will start our initial project. So if we look back in our directory, we should see a template.yaml file on a AWS Composer directory. This, we won't be looking at this, but here is where we start to write out our template. In fact, if you start creating resources here, it will get reflected on this template as well. You just won't be able to make any changes to it from here. So one of the first things we need is the API gateway. One big drawback of this, and this may change, but as of doing this video, by default, the API gateway is a REST API. We'll actually use this for now, but later on in our course, we'll manually change this to HTTP API. Since there is no way to drag a HTTP API just yet, we have to use a resource and write the configuration ourselves. And I find that the HTTP API is a lot more simplified, and for most projects, that's what I use. So we'll actually change this later on. But for now, for our first few videos, this works fine. So let's cancel this for now, and let's just drag over a Lambda function. You can type that in, it's already here. So there's a couple Lambda function we need, right? We need a few Lambda for a CRUD operation. We need one to create the actual URL. We need one to get, if we want to see a list of all the URLs that we have. And we probably want maybe an edit or a delete. I'm just going to start off with some of the most common one. And we also need one for redirect. So let's go ahead and build probably just our first one. We'll call this just a logical name. We'll call this create URL. We'll keep the folder structure as source. And let's change the runtime to Python. We can actually go with the latest version. I'm just going to go with 3.9. And we're going to use ARM. This should be fine. And I'll explain the handler name later on. We can change this later on as well. But let's just save this for now. Under API, let's give it a name. So let's call it Shortener API. I'm going to call it a Shortener service. No authorizer. And our first part, we're going to use a post. We're just going to say create URL. Let's save. And we want to map this create URL to our Lambda function. The next thing we need is actually our database, right? We do need a way to save this, and we're going to use DynamodDB. So let's call this table. A table, you can name this any name you desire. We're going to keep the partition key as ID for now. We'll probably add another key later on, but that's all we need for now. Just a unique ID to keep track of all the URLs. So hit save. And here we can look at what our template looks like so far. Perhaps in this video, we just wanted to get the initial scaffold up and running. We'll come back in our next video and make some changes in the naming convention of our handler and clean up a few things.